can see it.
I can take them all out. Put them all back. Oh, I can do that.
Okay, I'm just seeing where it shows up. Okay, we've started recording, so you're good.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Everybody. All right, before we start, I'll just let everybody know that it is being recorded, so anything we say will be recorded and be used to look at later, so. Say what you don't. Told. At this point, we'll start with the roll call of members.
Barry McManway.
Present.
Andy Strati. President. Joel Samuelson.
Present.
Dan Osborne.
Present.
Chester Goode.
Present.
Wayne Bean. John Miller. Bob Cooper.
Present.
And.
I would allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everybody had a chance to go for minutes?
Second.
First and second. Favor? Aye. All right. So the first thing we have on agenda is public hearing. And make a motion to public hearing. Request for vacation valley, 2550 East Shore Lane.
So moved.
That's first. Second. Second. Favor?
Aye.
All right.
Good evening, folks. I'm Bernie Feeney. I am from Plymouth Land Surveying, now part of the Whiteman family. I am here this evening on behalf of Jim Sturman, who is the petitioner in this case, asking that the council vacate or recommend vacation, whatever the process is. But at least get the ball rolling on the vacation of the street between the two lots that Sturman owns. This would be for, street name is Bigfoot Alley. And it extends from, the north property line of Sturman's property on the lake, all the way south to the south property line of Sturman's. There used to be a, kind of a gravel path down through there that the Sturmans had used as access for both sides prior to the buildup of these properties here. And that has been replaced by an asphalt parking lot and other improvements. So consequently, Sturman is asking for the vacation of that 20-foot alley in front of his property. This closing of the alley would not block the access of any properties to the south. All of those properties to the south have access through what has been labeled as 15-foot private drive over on the right-hand side of your sketch. Those properties, the properties immediately south of Sturman's, use that 15-foot private drive as their primary access. And then properties even further south have another private drive further east of that. So there is access to all of those lots down there. Nobody's access is being cut off. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Just one for the minutes. Can you just spell your name for me so I get that correct?
Feeney, Feeney. And the address of Plymouth Land Surveying is 1405 North Michigan in Plymouth. That was the toughest question I'm all set. Yes,
Once vacated, how will that property be used? Former alley.
the former alley will be used as part of Sturman's residential property there, the house that he's got that goes out onto the lake.
Yeah.
That'll be for his private use then.
Does he have an intention to purchase that from the county?
If it's vacated, the alley would revert half to this house,
Yeah.
and the other half would go to this lot right here.
Okay.
So half of that alley would go with the asphalt lot, half of it would go with the
So
alley.
that would become private property
Yes, it would,
belonging to them.
correct.
Now,
And they would be taxed on it.
they would be taxed, but how about a purchase of that land? I mean, that's not very much, but the land, being a lake lot would be worth a lot of money.
It's already worth that money. It won't be worth any more once the alley has been vacated.
The county owns that.
That is county right of way there, yes.
I would think that it should be purchased by the people wanting to vacate because it's gonna be used as a private property.
They were the ones who
Pay
gave it.
taxes, but
That land was originally given by the owners of those lots, whoever that might have been during the original subdivision of the property. The vacation of the property by law returns that land equally to the owners from which it came.
This actually would that be a decision of the county?
Yeah, it's in your zoning area.
It's in our zone.
Your recommendation would go to the county commissioners instead of us at the town council.
So it would come from this board
From
to
the
the
planning
county.
commission to the
So
county
it goes
commissioners,
to the council, then the council.
yeah, it goes directly,
I just want to make sure.
directly from planning commission to the county commissioners.
The town council will have none.
No.
Not our road, it's theirs.
But as far as let's call this alley on your sketch, right here, we're kind of up with Edwards Lane.
Yes, sir.
This considered an alley here. This is not going to be vacated, just this part.
No, it's not. And the reason being that Sturman doesn't control both sides here. This is, there's a house on this
Right.
piece of property. So based on what I think I saw out there, that house uses that, well, may use a part of that alley. So I'm not going to vacate it. I'm only going to vacate that part that is completely owned by Sturman on both sides.
Right.
This is driveway to the east for this asphalt lot is that how he accesses his home?
That's correct.
Okay, so. we
He
cut
comes-
that off.
Yeah,
He would
that
be
driveway
losing-
comes in off of Edwards.
He would be losing access then
No,
if that part went to this homeowner, right?
correct.
So they currently already have asphalt laid over the existing alley.
Right. You see the corner is concrete. You got the,
Yeah, it's already
Here.
built up.
right, this right here is all asphalt on the side.
Yes.
And it's actually, it's well, pretty tall bush trees or whatever, a line always is here. And then there's big tree here. So I don't know if it's on the side or that side, but still on these two properties. I mean, either way, it's combined. Folks will pay where they're at.
I think that the question of purchase, we approve this, should be brought to the county commissioners. Let them make the decision on that.
They make the decision anyway. We make the,
Yeah,
planning
we can make a
commission makes the
recommendation.
recommendation.
We can't put a stipulation on what the county has to do, because they have the control, we don't.
I think it should be,
You can go to the county,
so they,
you go to the county commissioners meeting, and as a
Voice your
citizen,
opinion, yeah.
as a citizen, you can voice your opinion.
think they should know about it anyway. Possibility.
Chuck, if this gets vacated and the alley becomes 10 foot each side, if the properties do get sold separately in the future, will there still be enough access?
No, it'll be on property.
It's only, this is one of those properties, remember, where we have properties on two sides of the road.
Yeah.
That has one parcel number, so that's one
Oh,
parcel
okay,
that's divided by that.
okay. I thought that's why the alley was created in the first place, is previously it had been owned by two people, now it's owned by.
I don't believe so.
And both parcels now, say, just because of the alley, but it's still all one lot with one lot number, and it's all L1.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought it was just somebody bought land on both sides, and
No.
now it's one owner.
No, it's one of those, remember we talked about it before, how
Yeah.
we're gonna try to clean those up as we go.
Mhm.
Well, this is one of them, and hopefully we can get it cleaned up somehow.
It's very similar to a significant number of the tracts of land on the south end of the lake, where the houses are on the south side, and then they have their docks and boat lots on the north side of the road, but it's all one lot.
I don't see any issues with it. I don't see it losing any access or anything. And I think, to the sale point, I think that becomes.
Do we have any more questions?
Well, once the member's done, but before we go, I'd like our secretary to read the letters.
And then,
And
if
then,
you're done with Bernie, you can sit down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yes, as long as they and everything was. questions.
Yeah, so just for the record, this is an email from Kevin Obermeyer dated September 19th regarding closing alley at 2550 East Shore. Kevin writes, I'm not in favor of vacating. That's in response to a note from Karen Heim. Kevin, pending the plan commission's review tonight, you may receive a request to vacate. We'll pass along the plan commission's recommendation to Ty, and we'll take it from there. Kevin Overmeyer says, below that, no one has approached us on this. On September 19th, 2022, Union trustee of Marshall County wrote, Karen, I had someone in my office today complaining that they were trying to close the alley at 2550 East Shore Lane. Their comments were the alleys were put there for a reason, so people could get from one property to another. Fire trucks and emergency vehicles could get closer to homes. There's also lake access right at the end of that alley, so if anyone wanting to get to the lake on that access to get out, they would not be able to back into the alley and turn around to go back out Edwards Lanes. Listen to their remarks. This is the person writing the email, to their remarks, and they sounded legitimate to me, so I'm passing them on. Thanks for considering. See, these are actually two things that go together.
Yeah.
Thanks for considering Marlene Mahler.
Kevin then followed up with, he was up at the county building looking into the parcel numbers, and that's the packet I put in front of you. There's some sort of agreement between two property owners on this alley. And then one of the parcel, so the first 4 pages of this is that agreement. And I don't know if these are the original homeowners or what the deal is. I have not, I got this at 4:00 this afternoon. And then the last 3 pages, at one point, it looks like on one of the, on 2548 East Shore Lane, the legal description was changed and recorded So that obviously follows, the in perpetuity or whatever, perpetual or whatever, legal description. So we Xerox these, thinking you might want to review these in light of vacating the alley before you make a decision. And I don't know, given how late we got this, I haven't had obviously an attorney review it for you, so you may have to do that as well if you want.
At this time, I'll ask the building commissioner his views and what he's learned on this.
Okay, when I first looked at this, I thought, it's simple, it's a no-brainer. Stamp it, let's go on and have another cookie. But, it's more complicated than that. That is not an alley. That is an extension of East Shore Lane. And that's owned by the county, same as East Shore Lane is. So it's not an alley, never was an alley. The plan was, it appears to be, that that road was to continue on down and pick up those other houses on down the lake as you went farther along. So that's what the original intent was when it was laid out, is what it appears to me. Can't tell you what they thought, but I can tell you what it appears to be. And that's a 20-foot wide strip by approximately 100,
I think 89 feet.
somewhere in there. I think it's probably 89 feet on the right side, skirting the side and the other. I think it would be, I think, what we've got here is coming along. There's another one that goes back to 1951, where the owners were doing some back and forth, whatever they were doing. I think that we should have a no motion on this, send it to our attorney, who's also the county attorney, let him sort this out with the owners. I don't think that we have anything in it at this point, because we don't know who the owners are, because this just came in. I'm saying what I've got here is to the county. It's part of East Shore Lane. This is saying, appears to be saying something different. So that's why I think we have the information to make a decision.
Does anybody have any questions for the building commissioner? Go to questions and any thoughts on this? None.
I had a question generally. When I pulled up GIS, am I correct that East Shore Lane, Edwards Lane are in fact public streets?
Yes.
Can you explain to me why there is a sign that says private property dead end when it's in fact is not private property and it is not a dead end? And how that's,
I want you to come down my street.
and how that's
I mean,
proper.
I mean, that's just,
that,
should it come down? Could it come down? Yes. Should it? That's not my determination.
Who makes that determination?
It's in the right of way, that sign.
I mean, it should. It's a public street. There's public access down there. We don't have enough public access to this lake.
we do have a sign on it, it can't be in the right of way. And it's with the county's rules as well.
Right.
It could be the county put it there. I don't
I
know
mean, yeah,
who put it there, but
but I'm glad you brought that up, because my question is the same thing, because it's called East Shore Lane, and so is East Shore Lane going, where's that East Shore Drive? About what turns out.
It's East Shore Drive,
And then East Shore Lane,
then East Shore Lane comes down and then comes back into it. East Shore.
It's always been referred to as private,
Right.
because
because somebody put a sign
Because
there.
there's
that
a
says-
sign.
Somebody put a sign.
Right, but it's not, yeah, private lane.
But it's not, it belongs to the county. same way as that parcel that we've been calling an alley. That's
It
part
was
of,
part of it.
part of the road.
So did the county put those speed bumps in there then? Or was that put in by?
I think that was private. I think it was,
Let's get to a different issue here.
I-
Carried away.
Well, those are some speed bumps too.
Yeah. Any more members have anything else to say? I'll go to the public.
The other question I kind of had is, if that was indeed a public alley, as we've been talking about, how is there allowed to construct on
okay. Close your eyes and somebody does something. What did they do? I don't know. Those people just used it.
it?
Sturmans have used it, put a fence across it. You know, the neighbors have put their parking lot and the pavers out there, the basketball goal. No one said anything, so they just used it.
When you go back
So
to the
that's how we
private, when you go back to the private drive sign,
Mhm.
people automatically think it's private and everything back there,
Is there.
you don't have access to do whatever you come through there if you want to, but
Should put something in there.
anybody online,
It's me and Chuck.
Mr. Jim, Joe, think you have anything to add? No?
No,
Okay. All right, anybody? Back row? Yep.
Just curious, did you hear anything from the people at the end of the alley, street, whatever it is? That would have access to there? Did they say yay or no?
The people that are right next door to the
You're not
Sturmans.
got
To
the
the south.
property to the south?
At the south end of the,
I went out there this morning and there was nobody home. Around there, and actually, every time of year it is. But I had one gentleman that was in your lane. Was talking about it and said, well, they've got access, all they would use the other lane that comes off the corner, you know, before you get to Marina, comes straight down. They all have access from that private drive. So we're actually using the private drive as a driveway, a shared driveway, if you so to speak. Private drive. I don't know who owns the private drive, but somebody does. And they're actually using it as a shared driveway through to the property. And I'm sure I'm fond of that idea.
This doesn't have an owner to the private drive.
Pardon?
It doesn't show that there's an owner. It
Right,
just shows it like a regular street.
and that's my point, exactly,
That maybe the county owns that.
but we don't know.
it would be also interesting if the public understood there's access. The perception of this in general might be different. You know, a lot of people do think it's a private drive back there, so they might not even have an opinion on this, but if people knew it wasn't and there's public access to the lake, you might have more people weighing in on it,
Right,
just saying.
Just as a matter of curiosity, our office does deed research on any job that we've been asked to work on. And the deed research that we have in this file indicates that the Sturman family owns the next house to the south.
so it ends at their property as well.
that ends in this Sherman property.
That's in the German property.
Right.
Yeah, they own three sides here.
Three side.
But then the street to the east, which is also identified as private, shows as public on the GIS map.
Oh, really? The one that on
Yeah.
our little map says private?
Yes, it's showing here.
This is where Wayne would be fun, because he would know his jurisdiction.
It does say
It's
private.
not our jurisdiction.
Um,
Jurisdiction stops.
the lake.
Our jurisdiction stops all the way up to Norfolk.
Well, the police officer would be a county cop.
Yeah.
What else is private? What's on that?
I know it says it.
The one that comes off the corner.
That's not identified as being owned by
Yes, it
anybody
says
other than-
private.
Because I thought I was private of my election.
I mean, all these things that we're speaking about now, this is the things I was looking at. Every time I'm looking at it, there's a question mark comes in.
Well, and
And
You know, just like talking here. It shows that it's owned by the county, it says private. So, you know,
Which way is it?
which way is it? Who owns it? And does this group here have the authority to make that decision?
I'm gonna echo a question that Danny and I were talking about.
Can I hold you up? I want to make sure Kevin was done.
I'm sorry.
Kevin, do you have anything else, Brett?
No.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
No, that's fine. Danny raised the question, if that's truly public access to the lake, what does the DNR have anything to say about this?
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with the access as far as Edwards Lane. Because I mean, the access itself is listed as Edwards Lane. But I do see what you're saying as well, because it does.
It's right, it's right there. It's right there.
They did put a sign.
Well, and that's the thing. I know when you do the public notice, you're notifying the neighbors, but are we really notifying the public?
That's a,
And does the county know that these other signs have been posted, et cetera? Because if you think about, the county owns Academy Road too, and there's been stuff built on Academy Road that wasn't done by the county. So in some cases, I think it's just because they don't come that far south very often, you know? So we've seen speed bumps here and stuff like that on Academy Road, but and maybe they're okay with it too, because maybe it's improved that road or improved, you know, traffic flow. But they may not be totally aware of what's back there.
do you have any more public comments, concerns? Or against?
You know, I'm looking at, you have the Union Township trustee saying that it's not a good idea. We have one of our commissioners who's actually president. Commissioners this year is saying that he doesn't believe it should be vacated. We have this information here that has questionable
Ambiguity.
ownership
Yeah.
to it. And we have, I had Sterling sent me an affidavit today that says that they own it. That was back in goes back to 1911. 1934 and then updated 1951.
But it's talking about owning property or owning the alley.
Reading that road. But that's not for us to say.
Right.
That's legal, but let that be between them and the county commission.
What I'm gathering here is I would really hate to try and approve this by no more information than what we've got. And then as Mr. Monroe said, as far as the other people even knowing about this, so the short notice of getting it. I mean, I would honestly think that non-approval would be a vote no against this particular what's being done. And I don't know what the process, if we do vote no, then it would just absolutely have to be brought before the county. Am I correct?
Yeah, whatever you can
We
vote
would not give.
to recommend or not to recommend, or recommend it with modifications or table. If you recommend against, it still goes to commissioners and they still decide what they want to do.
So what we're saying here, as far as members here, you have, we're not voting out, we're still in the public hearing. But you have that choice either to vote no,
Yes.
wanted to, or yes, we approve it
No.
and send it to the county. We vote no, that we disapprove of it and send it to the county, or else we vote no and leave it, leave it, moot,
Can we, you know, with Chuck's suggestion of having our attorney look at this new information, should we table it and
That's the
let
other
that
option.
review that?
And that's the other
Or-
option.
Yeah, I don't think it makes a difference if he reviews it or not. He's only gonna come up with one of two conclusions, either they own it or they don't own it. And I don't think that that makes a difference to us, to this group here. We send it to, it would be my recommendation to send it to the county
Unless they're gonna
with
make
a
a
no
final,
vote.
they're gonna make a final
I
decision.
would say that we do
Regardless
not,
of
Then it
what.
goes,
we do not recommend it. Send it to them as far as our non-recommendation. So they would know that we didn't approve, but they still have the authority. I know what you're saying as far as tabling it. But
and they let their attorney look at all the legal parts of it.
I mean, I think as far as the public would have more notice to address it with the county.
We sent out letters to everybody within 300 feet of that, the same way we always do.
Right.
You know, the difference with this being, since it's on lakefront, the 300 feet only goes and picks up so many people. Okay? But we do publish it in the paper and it is on our website. The meetings,
Right.
what it's about.
And I'm just saying that these people would be aware of it by the time it gets to the county. They take one to address it, they can address it to the county.
Questions back from?
Is there any limitation to a no vote? Is that, like, some things that you say you vote no on, then they can't come back for a year type of thing? Is there anything like that? That if they do pursue it with the county and come to a resolution, can they come back to you again if you vote no?
If we vote no, then they have 1 year before they can bring
Could
it
come
back.
back again.
Right.
So that, whether that factors in your decision or not, but
Then should refer it to the attorney and table it until we get an answer from them.
What difference is the attorney's opinion? They either own it or they don't own it. That's,
Well, I think there's also,
I think there's more to it.
yeah, it's not an ownership issue, but this piece, if there's an agreement on two of the properties on the alley. And then one is just a legal description change that occurred on the property.
I would like to know our attorney's view of this document you provided. I'd also like to know status of the private lane is Edwards and everything else that's marked private.
Yeah.
Dead end
Private lane
to a
public access.
public access site. I'd like our attorney to answer those questions.
No other questions? I take a motion to vote the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now in discussion as far as how you want to handle this. You make a suggestion, how you think it ought to proceed? Do you think it ought to go to the attorney or? Can you hear a motion that somebody thinks they want to do? Someone more discussion or? Motion.
I would table it until we hear from our attorney. I mean, if it turns out, I think I know how a vote would go, but if it turns out that we're wrong, we shouldn't, prejudice the Sturman's request, making them wait a year. So
So this is a motion.
I'm just thinking out loud here to get to the commission is.
Just make sure you're writing what you're thinking.
He's got sand in his glasses right now, so he
I
can't.
mean, I know I've heard from a few members, and I've heard from some other members. But myself, if anybody needs to know, I mean,
That's my.
I'm leaning both ways. So if, board feels like we should address the attorney and have us looked at prior to even voting no or voting yes. I'm good with that, so.
If it goes to the county commissioners, their attorney's the same as our attorney. County commissioners, that's Clevenger as their attorney. Before it goes before them, he can do his research and make a recommendation to them. I don't see that it has to come back to this group ever.
Right.
Yes,
At
no,
the
right.
same time, though, I would like to know in our zoning whether that, and with Don, I like to know whether that's private drive or not,
Okay,
as far as
but
information.
I
for that.
think that's a separate issue. I think what we need to do is ask to get our attorney to come into the plan commission meeting, discuss this and answer questions about the road.
But it would make a difference to me as far as I recommend yes or recommend no to the county as well. If I knew that ahead of time.
What you're saying is yes, no, or in between, the county's gonna supersede whatever we decide.
They have that power, yes. But the reason I'm saying this is because we are addressing it within our zoning and I don't want to pass up. Vote, yes, go ahead and do it when I realize that these are private lanes and they're sharing a private lane to get to the other property that this alley would, or maybe it was actually intended to be put there for that reason. And I'm hoping that, and I'm sure really the county's gonna look at the same situation. But I do feel like I'd rather have this information before I send it to the county itself. But I would still go and continue to see this for the makes.
It's the only comment that I really want to kind of make on this. You're saying that this is not an alley, it's the end of East Shore Lane. And what I was starting to say earlier, the wrong part of the meeting, I don't see any issues bearing any ownership issues. Giving up a small piece of property that really only accesses Sturman's, I understand that. However, if we're giving up the end of a public street, what's to stop everybody down East Shore Lane to eventually just kind of come in with the same request, and then what was a public street becomes private because everybody had the same scenario. I'm sure there's several properties all down that lane where they own on both sides of the street, and here in various other places. So I'm kind of be wary of giving up little bits of street, and opening that can of worms, and everybody comes back asking us to give up their little bit of street between their property, and then we're left with no lake access anymore.
Sounds like to me, like Don's suggestion is probably what we're all thinking.
Pulling that up.
Probably want to make a motion for it.
So I guess question Jenny, so it's not prejudice the sermons request with a no vote. Need a motion to table this.
Yeah,
Okay,
until you have
You,
the information
Okay.
that you desire
yeah,
to make.
we lack enough information to go over on it, then it can be.
then I would move that table the Stern's request that we ask our attorney to advise us on the property records that Jimmy has supplied to us, as well as advise us on the status of private lane, Edwards Lane, and those other areas labeled private lane.
Someone's not the county actually taking care of it. but- Right, not that I'm in the county. but- And I don't have to say so. I got a motion then,
Second,
in a second. So I'll approve. Say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, and then for the table. Wait, there is another date. This will come back as far as the deadline.
Yeah, I have it electronic.
So I guess to clarify, since we tabled it, waiting on our county attorney.
Yeah, I'll communicate with him and I'll copy you, Barry, and
So we'll know.
Yeah. so we'll just go from there.
Will require no public hearing.
Yeah, and knowing Jim's schedule, I don't think we wanted to do it for October. A public notice would be due this week for October, so we're looking at November at the earliest.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep this one.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks. Thank you. Thanks, Bertie.
All right, next thing on the agenda is discussion of ordinance amendments, and we've discussed this several times, but yeah, that would be great. Have my notes.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Right. But I know we talked about them. We had several that we were looking at. And what we were discussing, some of them that we might want to consider, I mean, as far as talking about these that we might be able to put over public hearing for the changes. And Jenny's gonna get it, because I know we talked about the 10-foot setback rear yard. 25. It says 25 on R1, R2. Yeah. But in a discussion between Chuck, myself, and Mr. Jim Rowe, and Chester's suggestion, talking with him, we looked at actually the R1 district that's got the most non-conforming lots. Not non-conforming structures on, but your non-conforming lots is where we have our, I say a problem, but an issue that comes up a lot is because of the rear yard setback, because the lot's not big enough, that you're either gonna have to get a variance for the front or a variance for the back. And side yard setback, I don't think, I mean, under our ordinances, side yard setback is significant enough that it shouldn't be approached on for any reason other than for a variance. There you go. Jenny, if you would.
Yeah, for the R1 zoning on page 26, we would be adding a header called non-conforming lots of record. And following that header, it would say, for non-conforming lots of record, all minimum rear yard setbacks are to be determined by the plan commission. The minimum rear yard setback cannot be less than 10 feet.
That would be the wording that having changes, whatever, I mean, we'll discuss it at the public hearing and everything else before we
The minimum can't be less than 10 feet.
cannot be.
And then the first part of that though was setback plan.
Yes,
And that is only for non-conforming lots, right?
yes.
For conforming lots, the ordinance would stay the same.
Yes.
And we discussed, R1 and R2, but we rated the change on R2 just because you've got
No, I have a
single
question.
and multifamily residences. I don't think you can put that on new sector.
When conforming and non-conforming lots intersect or come next to
Adjacent to each other,
Hmm?
when they're adjacent,
Yeah, right. What then? Does that go to the BZA? Should it?
I don't understand why you're asking. I mean, what?
Well, if a person has a non-conforming lot next to a conforming lot,
Right,
the person with the conforming lot says, hey, wait a minute, why it's 10 feet away, that's not good, I'm gonna be looking out my back window and, you're gonna be right on top of my lot line at 10 feet.
I think what you're saying, but I don't know where if we have a non-conforming lot next to it, that,
I don't know either, but there may be.
If it's next to a conforming lot, they'd have 25 feet setback and the conforming lot.
Yes, that's
The
right.
non-conforming would be 10, so the 30.
But I think it depends on the situation of the property.
well, I don't know where you'd ever have a situation when you got a street or front yard. And then you got the backyard back there is you've got 25 feet, you get 10 feet. Both them lots are the same length, the same size and the same whatever. They'll find it non-conforming lot.
If they're both non-conforming, I can understand that, but if one is conforming, if I was looking out the back window, I would want someone to be building 10 feet away when it's normally 25 feet.
Right, if they're non-conforming in your backyard, and their rear yard is facing yours, you're still gonna have 10 foot and 25 feet.
I understand that.
Yeah,
It's still
But I
further
might
away
not
from
like
side
it
to
as
side
it's
of 10 feet in
property.
either direction.
Well, you would be able to tell the plan commission that because it's up to the plan commission. This is just a minimum, can't be less than 10 feet, but it's still determined by plan commission. They can't just do it randomly.
right.
Does that make sense?
So. This is related to your question, Chester. Does that mean that the plan commission will be looking lot by lot?
Think
They might-
what that section says is the plan commission or their appointee.
Right.
Which would be, most cases, me, looking at that before it even comes to you. So I would be the one looking at those,
What standard would you apply?
whatever we decide here.
Well, I mean,
I understand what you're saying. How do you make it?
I mean, the part of getting hung up on is, want it to be 10 feet for non-conforming, we should just say it's 10 feet, be done with it. Because all we're doing is shifting the work from the BZA to this group, to Chuck or somebody that may come after you and just says, I just don't like that. And I just don't like it. It's no kind of legal standard. It's just gonna get it
I
figured.
think we started with that and then you made a point about your property.
My property is non-conforming one,
Okay,
and it's got a non-conforming structure.
okay.
All right, my lot, and of course, we're going back to another issue that we haven't brought up yet, but we've got an ordinance that we might want to look at some time or another, because
I'm just talking.
Right now.
Talking.
I can actually build my house back if I wanted to on the same footprint. But I also can build a house and be conforming or complied with all ordinances. But not all conforming lots are long enough to do that. In other words, it would have to come before a variance forced by our ordinance on a non-conforming lot of record. But most of these lots, the non-conforming lots were here historically before our conforming one up for. So you're gonna try and force somebody to get a variance to put the house back from your 25-foot setback from the front. And then you're gonna, in other words, if you make it conforming than 25-foot, which that's what the ordinance calls for, and you got 25 feet on the back side of it for your rear yard, that's 50 feet out of some of these lots are only 70 feet across. And you're saying that you can't build your house over 15 feet wide in the middle of your lot. I don't think I would want that little bitty house next to me on my property, beside my property either.
Are you talking about building a house 10 feet from the rear property line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got several in town already that are non-conforming structures on a non-conforming lot. Due to our ordinances, they can stay that way or they can be changed.
I
It is
think
what
that
it's at.
should be, you know, on an individual basis brought before the BZA. Because in a situation like that, the person with the conforming lot may have quite a bit of objection to having a home built 10 feet away from his property. When it used to be 25 feet. And, you know, depending on what's available, like what the structure is gonna look like, et cetera. I think that needs more investigation.
I think we were
I
looking,
know what you're saying, but
I think we were looking more at accessory structures than we were.
well, we've already got a 10-foot accessory structure setback. In other words, rear yard, you can put a garage 10 feet from the back.
How often does this specific scenario come before the BZA?
As far as the setbacks coming up, we've had quite a bit of it as far as anywhere, I guess, up around Liberty and areas up in there. We've got on the south end of town, we've got that, I think, even
And they've generally been approved or denied by the BZA.
9 times out of 10 or 9.5 times out of 10, they've been approved.
There's not been any issues of that to date due to that.
Today, no, well, I don't know. I mean,
Not that been brought to our attention.
not what's been brought to
That's
our
a-
attention.
It's a common issue that's commonly solved in the same way each time. We would essentially be eliminating the step of sending that before the BZA and tying them up, and we would just give Chuck the authority to approve that as long as everything seems.
Right, and what we're looking at is right now,
Am I right?
right now, you've got a Board of Appeals, you know, or the Board of Zoning Appeals. And that Board of Zoning Appeals is used more than the Planning Commission. Now, when we've got something that our ordinances are set up to just send everybody to the Planning Commission, we're not doing our job.
To the BZA.
I mean, to BZA, yeah.
Right.
So,
You're supposed to look at the cases that come before the BZA, the ones that come over and over and over again. Then you look at those. Trying to
Amend
make
the
them-
ordinance to
Right,
rectify that situation.
correct, if they're all being passed 9.5 times out of 10.
the reason I bring this up, and Dan, Mr. Osborne and myself, we're on both boards. And we witnessed a whole lot of variances that really could be avoided by some of our ordinances being restrictive to the point that trying to be uniform throughout the town. When our lot sizes, older homes, everything like that, don't conform to our ordinances. And these ordinances are written as far as for future use, what we want the town to be. But we're probably never gonna be able to do away with non-conforming lots. Those are,
Because
those are
90%
100
of them in
years
town are non-conforming.
old. And
That's the problem.
and the basic issue we've got is in town. You know, it's hard to, right now, we've got a 25-foot setback. And most homes in town, on say Main Street, you're talking about Lake Shore? I mean, where are you gonna go to? We're gonna go to a variance on a 25-foot setback right now. And they're not gonna change it less, but the rear yard would actually allow when that house on Lake Shore is sold, that property, and they're gonna build a new house.
Go further
And then
back.
it can move back and you can actually start conforming to our comprehensive plan.
What we're seeing is, Barry brought it up and Dan is, we're seeing more of those variances come before the BZA because we have now people buying these infill lots, tearing the houses down and rebuilding again. And so that's why we're getting it more.
Yeah, so we've got that issue with we've got issue right now. We're allowing to build on the same footprint. And they're still going to get a variance to add on.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they're already non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. They're able to build that house back, then turn around and get a variance to add on and make it more non-conforming due to our ordinance.
I think one reason we wrote this paragraph this way too was, if it's a non-conforming lot and the minimum is 10 feet, they have to start with that when they do their site plan or whatever building plan they come up with. But by having this authorized body stamp it, because you meet frequently enough, you're here once a month. Half these site plans are with an architect for 6 months. What's another meeting to them? Then it's an authorized body. Your agendas are also published. So a neighbor of a non-conforming lot would see that this is on the agenda to be approved, whatever site plan it is. I think there was part of us saying it can't just be one person randomly who's not authorized as a governing body. At least Plan Commission could go, yep, it's a non-conforming lot. They're 15 feet from the backyard setback. We want a minimum of 10, we approve. Or you can be like, you know what, this does not work for this particular property because you could actually make yours conforming and go to, or you could go to 20 or whatever.
Right.
We kind of wanted some kind of element of approval that wasn't just the building.
Basically, definitely getting this started and moving forward till we get a basis laid out. Definitely have to do that. So coming before the plan commission might increase the workload, but it also helps you keep the conformity for the ordinance.
It sounds like we're making a pseudo BCA.
Do what?
It sounds like we're making a pseudo BCA.
Right, and what is the BZA for?
To look at what we've passed down and say that this is what's going on. It's basically what you're saying.
In other words, somebody wanting something that's not in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Due to hardship, whatever.
Mhm.
But at the same time, are you any different then than, let's say, we just don't set a backyard setback in our, we just send it off BCA? Is that what we want to do, send it over to BCA?
No,
And
it's,
it's
I'd
not.
put it at 10 feet and be done.
Right, that's what I said.
Step it at 10 feet and be done. Right, if you're 11 feet, great, go build your house.
Yeah.
I just don't see us getting the business like, oh, I could just see us being here like essentially redrawing architect's plans. Like, well, what if you just move this thing just a little bit? I don't think that's our job.
No.
So, and I don't think our job is legislating taste.
Yeah.
So,
We don't have anything to summarize in this one.
so yeah, 90% of the R1s, particularly in town limits, are non-conforming. Well, the problem is are not people who live there, the problem is the ordinance needs to be changed. So 90% of them can be conforming.
So what you're saying is that you put that in the ordinance and they don't come before the planning commission.
Yeah. I mean,
As
the
long as
ordinance
it's
is-
only non-conforming lots, you can still keep the 25 for conforming
Yeah.
lots, right?
Right now, they might come before the planning commission on that. We can't approve it. They have to go get a variance. They may have to attend both meetings. I mean, there's a possibility.
And that just seems like it'd be another thing to set up confusion. Like, oh, they went to the BZA when they're supposed to be going to the planning commission first.
Well, we have that anyway, so.
So it would read, for non-conforming lots of record, the minimum rear yard setback cannot be less than 10 feet.
I mean, not voting on it, but I mean, everybody understands what.
Yeah.
And it gives us acceptable language.
Yeah.
Right. It gives us enough time to figure out.
Put that. in the
Yeah.
Trying to read one.
I mean, right now, we're not approving that language, but we've got a language that we can start with.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
the
in a
purpose of
public
the
hearing.
advertisement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, and then what was the other one we had?
On page 180, changing in the Culver Citizen newspaper to in a local newspaper such as the Pilot News.
Right now, what we've got, in order to go with this, we gotta wait on the citizen for every 2 weeks, and we've got a deadline to where we can actually get something on the next meeting for public hearing notification. And so by being able to go to any local newspaper, whatever, and it's on.
It's a little hard to see from your distance, but all of these yellow, that's the ad submission deadline. And some of those are almost 5 weeks ahead of what the case is. You know, so if we say the Culver Citizen or other local paper, then we can get it quicker into the Pilot News or someplace else.
Karen's been putting them on the website and TGL as well, which
Yeah.
will be a regular thing, and on the bulletin board out there.
I don't wanna.
Yeah.
Be a pessimist here, but do we have to have some language at some point regarding like. What if there is no local newspaper? At some point,
You
Yeah,
want to say local media? With the wording be for local
It's a
media?
fair point. I think that is.
I never thought of that.
I think that's a town attorney question because in how, and there must be towns in Indiana, which that's the case, how they satisfy the public notice requirement. Like there'd just be a question for them to advise us then how to satisfy that.
Because we had discussed about putting it out on the Lions Club sign and then the sign out by the school too.
Right, but then you're not controlling the public that you want to get hold of, no who come by there and read it. I put it in local newspaper, though, it is there in writing, and you can only back up, prove that
Then it
it
was
was
there,
there.
okay, I see.
Yeah, I do have some small towns do, like county papers.
Some people do put that stuff on.
And we probably won't get away from it until they really are obsolete.
Right.
Because you still have people who, that's how they get their. But more and more people are getting their news on social media.
That's probably only
Joel.
gonna grow.
But that's a very good point, though, Andy. I like that because I'm one that looks toward the future and you're.
I'll run that by
I
you,
know.
Jim. It could be
Yeah.
that we could put
You're real, you're not.
in a local media or newspaper.
Yeah.
Just
If you
there.
have a handle on there, then. Yeah, that opens the door. And I know we had talked about a few more, but I think we're actually gonna wait for some of these other changes.
Like the L1.
And, yeah, the one on L1, since it's, coming on to fall and winter, we're gonna have less people probably getting in public input as far as what you're thinking is as far as what this orange here. I think they ought to be part of it.
At least have the opportunity.
You have the opportunity, but I mean, at least know that they're part of it, you know, may not be right, may not, maybe. I think they should have their voice.
I agree with it, can be a little tricky.
Yeah,
Do what?
Zooming or using Teams to get people in can be a little tricky.
Right, I mean, I know we've got that online access, whatever, but at the same time, it's a matter of, and I don't know, not everybody is as bad as I am, but to hear somebody talking over and whatever, I don't get the full concept of what the conversation, what they're trying to imply. I just guess I'm old school, face to face.
okay, very
You
good.
look at me, I know you're mad.
But you had to know you're bad. I don't think that-
Barry, I know that you were potentially gonna make changes to the PUD, but we were gonna wait until after the court hearing for 415.
Yeah,
So-
next year.
When is
Jim preferred we not
When
make
is- yeah, when
changes
is
to
that?
that yet.
October is earlier, right?
October 4th.
And that's the.
Yeah.
As far as,
That's Palmer's ruling. That, right?
415 Lake Shore.
right, I mean, what's happening on the board,
There's a court hearing.
the
on that
litigation.
case. Yeah.
Sheet, okay. That part I hadn't heard, and October 4th, that's pretty close.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's some people that are glad that that's gonna happen,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
like one in the audience.
But I mean, I keep asking, believe me, I feel like you're being put off, but we're not going to feel.
We've had conversations, I know what's you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Consider revising the ordinance on the PUD.
Doesn't state it before.
I think that's the only 5 things that I had on here, that 2 of them we are waiting on, and I think that's it, right? Or-
Yeah, once I check with Jim on that local media question, I'll send an email to Chuck and Karen. Because you're working on a public notice for this. If Jim's okay with us changing it to local media or newspaper, we'll make the change.
Right.
And that's how it'll get advertised. You guys can always change it when you have your public hearing. If someone gives you input, you want to reword it again, that's fine. We'll just publish it for the council meeting and go from there.
If Jim can get back to us by next Tuesday. This published date is the 28th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he can get back on that part of it, not on everything, but on
Yeah.
that part, then we can have that.
The other question I have is, radius. Like, how far out do we need to go? Like, if somebody doesn't subscribe to the pilot, they don't subscribe to the Citizen, but they subscribe to South Bend Tribune, or they watch WSBT and go on their website. Is that way too far out for
Yeah.
advertising purposes?
And it also gets
Yeah.
very expensive at that point, so it becomes unreasonable.
It's under the legal as far as what you have to do that's actually.
We actually
being-
advertise to more sources than your average community. We, of course, get critiqued for not
Yeah.
doing enough communication, but putting it on social media or website, TGL, and the paper is more than you have to do.
Well, our 300 feet is something that's set or it's not something we vote on, but the distance, we can increase it. You know, notification if we want to, but we're required.
Someplace nice, huh?
But I think what Joel was talking about was reaching out to other medias.
Oh,
Yeah, because like, I mean, I know people in the community that
I'd have to
much
stop
more
it.
self-done stuff on
Okay,
Facebook.
okay.
yeah, but that, all that saying is, yeah, you're reaching out to people that's not going to be actually, wow,
No, you are.
but more people that you're not.
Yeah.
In other words, you're going beyond
Something
your
you're paid to
you're
do.
required as far as. But spending money that you don't have to spend. so
Yeah.
Taxpayers' money.
That's true too. I just. Be like. Or so, or subscribe to it. It's like, you don't get your news.
Right. If I have anything else on, anyone discuss or see the ordinances, anything like that. And like I suggested before, if you see anything in this ordinance book, like I say, we've got more issues with something we're wanting to correct, but there's things that need to be corrected because they were actually recorded different than what they were supposed to be. So I would just can't give homework, but I wish you would actually read it up and look and try and find things, because I think there's things that are more restrictive to our citizens. Everything that shouldn't be there, and there's things that may be more lenient than what we actually was trying to enforce that we didn't know that was reading different, you know. Nothing else, we'll move on to old business. The old business that we do other than these ordinances.
Bad properties thing coming along, sure.
Working on it.
Bill, Cleveland Court.
We got Obispo, 709 Obispo torn down.
It tore down last week.
Right.
709 Obispo.
Yes,
Gone.
yes, got one.
It's for sale sign.
Yeah,
They put a sign up.
they've got more fill to bring in, probably
Mhm.
3 or 4 truckloads of fill to level it off, but they still got their equipment out there, still working. But the building is down and all the concrete's up and taken care of. So that's good news.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hopple property out there is still under.
That's under the county.
Down the county, that's, I mean, it may come back to our hands eventually, whatever.
Jefferson.
I was in
Yeah.
South.
Yeah,
Spokesman,
but
spokesman.
That's also in the county.
It's like right on the cusp.
I believe, I believe there's a demo order on one of the buildings.
We're on Jefferson.
yeah, that's outside of the town zoning boundary. It's in our 2-mile zone. So counties, I don't know whether they ordered something to be torn down.
That's what Bill Clevenger said at the one.
Yeah. But I didn't understand from him. I thought that he was talking about the building that's standing burned down to, that's taller building. And that's what I thought he was talking about.
I think that is the one, not the main building.
Yeah, not the other two.
Yeah,
The one without the front, not the
in
one
other
without
words,
the
the
road.
turn one,
Right.
Okay.
that's not gonna fall down, is one that is.
Yeah.
One versus the other.
Yeah.
That's been a flip phone.
So we're working on them.
Has anything else been looked into, and I'm not trying to bring up a bad news right now, I can't, but next to Larry Goldsmith's 10th, 17th. Burn,
Shemleski.
yeah,
Yes, he called me today. He sold 2 of those that he had back there, so he's getting that all out there. He knows that he can't manufacture there or do anything at that building. And he's looking for a property to use. And I've reached out to some people. Kevin gave me a big list of buildings that might be available, so I'm passing that on to Vern and letting him try to find a place for him. But he's not gonna manufacture out there on Stanford.
Is anything ever, he's never even finished that building, has he?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's,
I mean, the siding's not on it.
that's the next thing.
It's,
Yeah, there were lifts going in there and everything, remember? Yeah, none of that ever happened.
What are the circumstances on that? I mean, he had, what, 2 years under that? And what is the protocol as far as if he doesn't finish in 2 years?
we've never had a protocol. I mean, I honestly, we haven't, and that's something we should figure out.
That's the reason I'm bringing it up, because
Um,
I'm falling under the same thing, and I don't want to use Kevin as my example, because right now it's a bad thorn right now to me. I feel like we let him down due to the fact that we aren't following up, whatever it is, or whether we haven't got the right to follow it up, you know.
And I went through the list. I came up with, well, I won't say how many, quite a few permits that haven't been closed, finalized, or looked at. We don't know whether buildings have been completed or not. I think we need to come in with some type of an intermediate step, whether it's us looking at those every month to see what's been closed or who is outside in 2 years or whatever, but I think we need to.
I mean, do we need some kind of, whether it be on file, whatever, to let you know when that timeline comes up?
Yeah, right.
Special file, you know, these files are incomplete.
Online system tracks on.
Online system does it track, but it doesn't notify.
And
I mean,
and we're,
It doesn't need to, it's
Doesn't need to.
nicely listed.
I sent an email to Ty and Lori and Steve Howard talking about this, and we're gonna get together, trying to figure out how we can make the system work for us better. So,
as far
I
as
think a lot of the
notification,
open
what,
permits though are open because, not because they didn't necessarily complete it. In some cases, it just wasn't inspected. So the inspection triggers it. Do you have some open permits that are like 10 years old and, you know, it just,
right,
so
it
we're
depends on the project and
we're
what's
looking
going
at how
on.
to get that stuff cleared up,
Yeah.
cleaned up and on track, and then how do we keep track of that to make sure.
right,
it's
I
done?
mean, I
Because,
just opened the question, I wasn't.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not stepping on anybody's
Yeah.
toes. We're just, it's a bigger situation than.
I know our process is what needs to be looked at.
Right.
And that's really what I'm trying to bring up.
And, you know, if something gets out there to be a year or a year and a half old, then we should, maybe it triggers us to start to look at it and say, hey, what's going on? Because some people will get a permit, and I know this from building, not that I ever did it, but I know homeowners probably are the worst. They'll get a permit, do the work, but they'll never call for any inspections. So now that permit just hangs there. They've done the work, using the space and
They
everything.
don't have any idea.
We don't have any idea, and it's never been inspected, so kind of have to figure out some type of a follow through, and we have to go with the county because they've got our system.
I mean, I know you got the same situations, you got permits drawn, and then due to whatever process, they can't start because of something else, and then it's delayed to that time, which they done used up a quarter of the permit time, if you want to say it that way.
Right.
And then when they do get started, and it may be something else with due to health, due to whatever, and
Right,
then
they
they got
just-
that that goes over, and they would either have to re-permit or whatever.
Russ used to keep a spreadsheet of the permits, and like when I had one on our building, 3 months out from the deadline, he came and told me, you have 3 months, otherwise you need to get another permit. So you would get these little warning emails from him.
Yeah.
But that's when he was manually doing the permits. Now it's sitting in an online system, so once we see it come through on our end, we could track it in a spreadsheet if we wanted to, but they just stay in a list there. You know,
Yeah.
scroll through boat tons of
Yeah.
them.
Because I know under that timeline for permit, you know, you've got that. Fall back on Kevin again. This guy had the permit to be completed in a certain amount of time.
I think in that case, it was completed.
Yeah, it was
It
completed.
shouldn't have been. It should
that-
have never been issued.
Right. That's where it was notified as far as the permit was issued for that time, but it was completed prior to it. But was it actually C of O act? I mean, what even done, you know, for that goes.
Right.
But I think for us to do our jobs, because I think job we owe the public and, you know, we failed Kevin in this regard, was one on the unsafe and non-compliance list. That's a list that shouldn't be dependent upon, you know, us having to think of it in the moment. We need to have that list every meeting. We also need to have a list of permits issued on the positive side.
Yeah.
See how things are progressing. So. That's something we should.
And I know, yeah, and I know,
The permits issued.
yeah, and I mean, I think a monthly report, I don't know how hard that'd be on you. I mean, you're gonna make a report sooner or later, or whatever. It's that monthly report, because it's like, I mean, I came to you right at the house out here, you know. Is there a permit issue?
Right.
So I mean, not seeing anything, if I wait till next month, you know, I still don't see it,
Right.
you know. But that is a question I'd like to ask. Did you ever find out on that?
I think I could do a sort of those. The information I've been getting, I've just been plugging in Culver and doing a search for Culver.
Yeah.
But I think we've got some properties in our 2 mile zone that don't have a Culver address.
Oh, yeah,
And so now, you know, I haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Yeah.
How to get all of those. But, you know, that's how I've been doing. I just go in and look, call. Go from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have a report for you next month.
that'd be great. Anybody else have any new business? Finish. I think you got that covered. All right, no new business? That sounds good. All right, we'll go ahead. I know you've been asked several questions with your report.
Have I not answered them?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you've got,
If you feel like you've taken care of it. If nobody has any questions other for the commissioner concerning anything, then we'll go to citizen input. We got a crowd here. Like to hear input. Anybody online still? Nobody online?
No,
oh,
just us. Recording.
Ratings aren't good.
We're either well liked or hated. I don't know which. They don't get cookies.
They don't get cookies.
No, they don't get
They should
cookies.
show up in person, right?
All right. Anybody wants to talk to us? All right, commission members, any concerns, input? Anything we can do to do our jobs a little bit better, make it easier, make it harder? Hey, hey, there you go. I did suggest that.
You haven't gotten your check yet?
Mine said on Fox on it.
That-
Okay.
that
Mine
goes a lot of-
said Don Fox on it, but I signed it when. Nothing else? Adjourn? Need a motion?
Motion we adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, don't run off.